Welcome to the electronic archive of presentations from Performance Incentives, the growing impact on American K-12 education, a national conference hosted at Peabody College of Vanderbilt University in 2008. The conference was sponsored by the National Center on Performance Incentives, a research and development center funded in part by the U.S. Department of Education's Institute of Education Sciences. You are watching a video presentation from Professor Matthew G. Springer, a research assistant professor of public policy and education at Vanderbilt University's Peabody College, to welcome conference participants and introduce the context for this research to policy forum.
The considerable amount of attention that has been paid to performance incentives in performance incentive policies is due in part to the fact that teachers are the single most important determinant of a child's experience in school and their schooling outcomes. The role a highly effective teacher can play in student learning is truly remarkable. Take, for example, a 2001 study which determined a string of five highly effective teachers can make up the typical difference that we see in the preparation of children from disadvantaged backgrounds. The importance of a teacher in a child's education is a point that virtually every education stakeholder agrees with, regardless of where they sit on the ideological continuum. While most agree on this point, I find it particularly troublesome select empirical studies find on average students in high-need schools end up with the least effective teachers. And the cumulative effect of this reduction in learning will likely result in meaningful differences in school attainment and future individual earnings. To set the stage for the next 2 days, I'd like to share an illustration of the growth in teacher compensation reform in American education. Over the last 5 years, I've spent more time than I care to admit reading one obscure reference after another about teacher pay for performance. Most of these reports are something even an academic doesn't find all that interesting. However, I could never find a reasonably systematic approach to demonstrate the broader dialogue on teacher compensation reform. Fortunately, all hope was not lost. As it appears with most things in the world today, a thing called Google came to my rescue. I learned Google has developed a technology that not only taps into archived news information, but also generates data that can be used to illustrate the incidence of a particular topic covered in the media. The search engine examines the content from more than 4,500 paid and unpaid subscription sources and counts only one hit per source in the event a story was covered in several different outlets. Thus, these estimates should not be susceptible to double counting. While I cannot defend Google's projections against the growth of newspaper outlets over time, I do believe it nicely frames the trajectory of popular interest in teacher pay reform. On the slides that you'll see to my left and right here, what I find is sporadic evidence of pay for performance reporting during the 1950s through the early 1980s. There was a modest increase in the number of reported media reports, as you'll see, in 1966, which should be now highlighted in a maroon bar. One of the top stories at this time included the superintendent of Berkeley, California, championing that their pay model did not include merit pay, while another particularly interesting story came from Chicago. In a keynote address at the American Federation of Teachers' 50th annual dinner at Chicago's Edgewater Beach Hotel in 1966, U.S. Commissioner of Education Harold Howe encouraged teachers to say what he said was militant. He told the AFT members that the growth of the democracy had been one of tending powers, and it is time that our schools participated in this splendid quarrel. Commissioner Howe went on to say, however, that under the present system of the single salary schedule, increases bore little relation to performance. Howe observed that in a sense, the automatic salary schedule resembled birthday presents. They were awarded, he said, not because the recipient is a year better, but mainly he is a year older. Charles Cogan, who was elected that very same evening to be the president of the Federation, remarked at the news conference that the Federation was unalterably opposed to merit pay, but he did agree with the commissioner on the militants issue and promised more of it. The number of articles published remained stagnant for nearly 2 decades until 1983, when more than 200 reports were published. This was the year in which the Reagan administration's influential Nation at Risk report was released, and the report contained a number of policy recommendations, including a push for salaries and teaching to be professionally competitive, market-sensitive, and performance-based. Coverage of performance incentives in education in the popular media remained relatively stable at this level for almost another decade. at which time our estimates reveal several shocks, one at the turn of the century, one in 2005, and then again in 2007. Reports in 2000 focused heavily on Denver's ProComp program, a differentiated compensation system designed in partnership with the Denver Classroom Teachers Association and Denver Public Schools. In 2005 and again in 2007, much of the reporting focused on President Bush's Teacher Incentive Fund, Florida Star and MAP programs, Minnesota's QComp, New York City's bonus program, and the nation's largest teacher incentive fund, teacher pay for performance program, Texas Governor's Educator Excellence Award program. It was also during this time that NCPI launched the nation's first randomized experiment on teacher pay for performance, which offers between $5,000 and $15,000 per year for 3 years according to their students' growth on a standardized assessment. NCPI's Nashville experiment was made possible through unprecedented collaboration between the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools, their Board of Education, the Tennessee and Metropolitan Nashville Teachers Associations, the Nashville business community, the Nashville Mayor's Office, and Vanderbilt University. Through this examination of growth in teacher compensation reform in popular media, there are two issues that particularly resonate with me. First, NCPI's experiment, Denver's ProComp initiative, and New York City's bonus program all involve teacher union participation, an apparent shift from the time when Commissioner Howe delivered his address at the Edgewater in 1966. Second, the number of locations considering or implementing performance incentive policies is striking. More than $500 million are spent in performance incentive programs each year. However, efforts to reform teacher compensation have lacked grounding in a scholarly base of knowledge regarding the effectiveness of such plans. We do not know with much certainty whether financial incentives for teachers, administrators, or schools affect the quality of teaching and learning. As a consequence, we have experienced many decades of debate on the relative merits and weaknesses of performance incentive policies without learning much empirically. While negotiating details of the Nashville Pay for Performance experiment in late summer of 2006, Al Mance, the executive director of the Tennessee Education Association, stated, "We need to know. We just need to know." At the heart of Al's statement, and what I believe is absent from most performance incentive programs, past and present, is the recognition of the need for rigorous, independent evaluations of the program intervention. It is without this information that we may witness many more decades of debate on whether pay for performance is a sound policy for improving teacher quality and student learning in the education system. As I close, I want to underscore one important point about our work at NCPI, especially for those who are unfamiliar with the work of NCPI. NCPI neither endorses nor opposes performance incentive policies in education. As a federally funded National Research and Development Center, our team is truly committed to fair and honest evaluations, not some predetermined outcome. It is around these ideas that I hope we engage during this conference, not to focus dialogue on individuals or to point fingers, but rather to systematically assess this policy mechanism, something that has failed to occur for more than 2 decades.
PowerPoint slides used in this presentation are available on the National Center on Performance Incentive website.